You ever wake up to find your peace violently interrupted by the unmistakable clink of metal on metal? That was me. 6:03 a.m. I step out onto the gravel. Drive of my lakefront property, coffee in hand, and there it is, a bright yellow clamp choking the front wheel of my Range Rover. My own car, on my own land. At first, I thought it was a mistake, a prank even. But there, slapped on the windshield, was a fine, courtesy of the local HOA. Now let me be clear, I own this property. Not just the home, not just the dock, the land, the deed, paid in full. So why the clamp? Turns out, I violated HOA regulations by parking on unapproved terrain. They said it like they were delivering justice. Like they were defending some sacred law. But this land wasn't under their jurisdiction. And I knew that. The worst part? They knew it too. That clamp was a message. A territorial flex. And maybe it would have worked. On someone else. But not on me. Because what the HOA didn't know, as they smugly ticketed my vehicle and strutted off like bureaucratic mall cops, was who I actually was. And what I was about to do. Let's just say, they picked the wrong lakefront to mess with. Stick around. It gets insane. I moved out to the lake 2 years ago. Wanted peace, nature, solitude. The kind of place where mornings smell like cedar and the loudest thing is a loon call. The property wasn't in an HOA when I bought it. It was a patch of independent land, surrounded by developments, run by one particularly nosy, power-drunk homeowners association. They called themselves Lakeside Serenity Council, which sounded like a yoga cult but turned out to be worse. A mix of clipboard Karens and suburban warlords, who believed in their God-given right to regulate every blade of grass. For the first year, we had a sort of truce. They didn't love that I had a pontoon with a custom wrap, or that I occasionally had friends over for late-night bonfires, but they couldn't do much. My land wasn't part of their fiefdom. Still, they tried to push boundaries. Friendly letters suggesting I adhere to community standards. Random reminders about noise and light pollution. I mostly ignored them. Politely. Then came the new HOA president. Her name was Linda. The kind of woman who weaponizes small talk. She wore pastel twin sets like armor and always had a clipboard within arm's reach. Linda made it clear during our very first chat that she intended to restore harmony to the lakefront. Translation, she wanted control. 2 weeks after that chat, I noticed a Lakeside Serenity sign installed just outside my driveway. On my side of the property line. I took it down, quietly. The next day, it was back up, along with a letter in my mailbox welcoming me as a provisional associate member of the HOA. No vote. No consent. I laughed, then shredded it. 3 days later came the clamp, and that was just the beginning. After the clamp incident, I contacted the county sheriff. He took one look at my deed, took one photo of the clamp, and shook his head. They had no legal right, he muttered. He filed a report, promised to follow up. But we both knew how these things go. HOAs are experts at skating just on the edge of the law. Then the pettiness exploded. First, they sent me a $500 community improvement assessment fee. Apparently, this was a new rule, passed in an emergency HOA meeting I was never informed about. Then, 2 nights later, my mailbox mysteriously disappeared. Just gone. Cement base and all. Linda left a note on my doorstep the next morning. It may be time to consider a mailbox design, more in line with community charm. I installed a steel reinforced box the next day. Industrial strength. Didn't match anything on the block. I made sure of it. The following week, a man in a polo shirt knocked on my door. Introduced himself as the HOA compliance officer. Asked to inspect my outdoor lighting setup. I smiled. Told him he had exactly 10 seconds to leave my property before. I called the sheriff. That was when the real circus began. Twice, someone dumped piles of mulch on the edge of my property, blocking my driveway. When I reviewed my outdoor cameras, blurry images of a dark sedan, plates obscured. Then came the letter threatening to revoke my lake access privileges. Except again, it's my lakefront, not theirs. The worst part? I could see some neighbors watching, whispering. A few were clearly enjoying the show. Others, nervous, afraid of Linda and her HOA militia. But one morning, while I was collecting debris from another mystery mulch drop, a neighbor approached. Jeff, retired Navy, sharp as a tack. You know, he said, she's pulled this crap before. Couple years back with the Macmillans, drove them off. That was the crack I needed. A pattern, a paper trail. That night I started digging. Public records, property lines, old HOA meeting minutes posted online. Turns out Linda had been on a slow conquest to absorb nearby properties into the HOA illegally. Fines, threats, provisional memberships, all backed by fake votes or just her signature. She wasn't just power tripping. She was forging HOA growth to boost her own influence and property value. Then I found the golden egg. an easement agreement from 1998 that clearly excluded my parcel from any lakeside Serenity Authority. But I didn't just want to stop her. I wanted to expose her. I hatched a plan. And next, I was going to flip the HOA on its head. Step 1, documentation. I assembled everything. The easement, the county tax maps, HOA bylaws, historical aerial photographs showing long-standing property lines. I printed them, bounded them, labeled them. Step 2, I made some calls. A friend of mine, Sheila, just so happened to be a real estate attorney. She nearly choked on her coffee when I told her what the HOA had done. That's not just overreach, she said. That's actionable. With her guidance, I drafted a cease and desist letter, citing trespassing, harassment, and defamation. Certified mail. Signature required. Then came the public phase. I printed a large wooden sign and posted it, right next to where Linda had placed the HOA sign. In bold letters, this property is not part of Lakeside Serenity. HOA trespassers will be prosecuted, underneath a QR code. It linked to a Dropbox folder with every single document I mentioned earlier, just for transparency. I also shared it on the neighborhood Facebook group, politely, professionally, with a caption. For those curious about property boundaries and rights, knowledge is power. Linda didn't respond immediately, but I could feel the storm brewing. 2 days later, the HOA sent a letter. No header, no signature, just a typed page claiming I had violated digital decorum and would be subject to further review by the board. Except by now, neighbors were taking notice. Jeff and a few others began asking questions. Publicly, how many of us are actually part of the HOA? When was the last election held? The pressure built. That's when Linda made her fatal error. She hosted an emergency town meeting at the community center. I attended, standing quietly at the back. She started with her usual performative calm, but when I raised my hand and asked her to explain the legal basis for extending HOA boundaries without consent, she lost it. Voice raised. Accused me of inciting rebellion. That moment was key. I recorded the entire exchange, legally, and I posted it. 3 days. Over 10,000 views. Dozens of comments. Most were local. This is exactly why we left the HOA. I'm on the same lake, same issue. Finally, someone standing up. My favorite? Karen finally met her match. The board held an emergency session. Linda was asked to step down. Temporarily, they said. But I knew it was permanent. As for me, the clamp was removed. The fines dropped. I received a written apology from the interim HOA leadership. Not that it mattered, because my next step was even bigger. But I'll save that for the climax. I filed a formal complaint with the county, not just about the clamp or the fines, but about the HOA itself, about its overreach, illegal expansion, and lack of transparency. Sheila helped me draft a comprehensive legal brief. We submitted it with a notarized complaint from Jeff and 2 other neighbors, former HOA members who'd quietly been pushed out by Linda's rule adjustments. Within 2 weeks, the county initiated an audit of the HOA. And then came the knock on Linda's door. 2 officials, clipboards in hand. Her expression? A cocktail of fear and fury. She looked like a queen watching her castle crumble. They found multiple violations. Financial irregularities, undocumented votes, retaliatory fines. The county froze all HOA enforcement actions pending investigation. Word spread fast. Neighbors who once tiptoed past my driveway now stopped to shake my hand. One even brought a pie. You did what no one else could. But I wasn't done. At the next scheduled board meeting, I showed up early, clipboard in hand, calm, collected. The interim president invited me to speak. I stepped up. I don't want to join this HOA. I never did. But I do want to make sure no one else is forced into it. So here's a proposal, a formal amendment, requiring unanimous consent for any new property to be added. Retroactive. Silence. Then nods. It passed. The clamp, now mounted in my garage, framed in glass. Below it, a brass plate, the day entitlement. Lost, because that's what this was about. Entitlement. And justice? Justice is best served slow. So what did I learn? That even in a quiet lakeside town, power can corrupt. But so can apathy. The more we let little tyrannies slide, the more they grow. HOAs can do good. They can keep things clean, orderly. But they are not kingdoms. And they certainly don't get to rewrite property law with sticky notes and forged votes. Linda thought her clipboard gave her power. But real power? That comes from knowing your rights and standing up when they're crossed. The truth is, I didn't want a war. I just wanted to park my car on my own land without a yellow boot and a passive-aggressive note attached. But when you push someone too far, when you threaten their peace, you wake up a version of them you weren't prepared for. I'll leave you with this. The rules matter, but so does the truth behind them. And when those two things don't match up, it's time to write new rules. Thanks for watching. Comment below if you've ever dealt with a power-hungry HOA or a neighborhood tyrant. What would you have done in my shoes? And if you made it to the end, drop a comment that says, "Justice served," so I know you're part of the resistance. Oh, and Linda? She moved 6 months later. Sold her house. Something about a toxic environment. Must have been the mulch. See you in the next one.